The internet feels like it belongs to no one and everyone at once. No CEO, no headquarters, no single company you could point to and say, they run this. That feeling is mostly true, but not entirely. There is a real answer to who controls that file and who controls the internet's foundation, and it comes down to 13 addresses, one small nonprofit in California, and a single country that held the master key for almost 2 decades. Every time you type a website name into your browser, something has to translate that name into the actual numerical address of the server hosting it. That system is called DNS, the domain name system. Think of it as the internet's phone book. At the very top of that phone book sits something called the root zone, the master file that tells every other server on Earth where to find the authoritative record for .com, .org, .net, and every other domain ending that exists. Whoever controls that root zone file controls, in a very real sense, the map everyone else uses to find anything online. And here's the uncomfortable part. There is no backup internet. If this map gets corrupted at the source, there's no second version to switch to. That master file is distributed globally through exactly 13 root server addresses, named a.rootservers.net through m.rootservers.net. 13. For the entire internet. That number alone should feel strange, like discovering the entire global banking system runs through 13 buildings. Here's where it gets interesting. Those 13 addresses aren't run by one organization. They're operated by a mix of universities, government agencies, and private companies scattered around the world. VeriSign runs 2 of them, NASA operates one, the US Department of Defense runs another, a Japanese research consortium runs one, a Swedish nonprofit runs another. This spread is deliberate. No single organization controls the entire root server system. It's built this way specifically so no one government or company can unilaterally shut it down or seize control of it. But here's the detail almost nobody knows. Historically, 10 of those 13 root servers physically sat inside the United States. For decades, that gave one country disproportionate influence over the internet's actual foundation, a level of leverage most of the world didn't fully grasp until it became a diplomatic flashpoint. Now, before you panic, these aren't really 13 lonely machines. Each address is actually answered by hundreds, sometimes thousands of physical servers scattered across the planet, using a technique called Anycast. So losing one root server doesn't take anything down. But losing coordinated control of the system behind all 13? That's a different kind of threat entirely. And it's exactly the scenario governments have spent decades quietly preparing for. The body that actually coordinates all of this is called ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. It's a nonprofit based in California, and it's responsible for approving new domain endings, coordinating IP address allocation, and maintaining that root zone file everything else depends on. Here's the part that surprises people. ICANN cannot control what's on the internet. It can't censor a website, can't enforce any country's laws, can't regulate content. Its power is narrow, but foundational. It controls the map, not the territory. For years, though, ICANN operated under the oversight of a specific U.S. government agency, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, which meant that even though ICANN was technically independent, the United States government retained ultimate authority over changes to the internet's core addressing system. One government, one phone call, in theory, away from reshaping how the entire planet finds anything online. This arrangement became a genuine international controversy. Countries like Brazil, China, Russia, and South Africa spent years arguing that one nation shouldn't hold ultimate authority over infrastructure the entire world depends on. The fight got ugly. Some proposals on the table would have handed control to a United Nations body instead, which critics feared could let authoritarian governments gain a formal seat at the table over how the entire Internet's addressing system works. Others insisted the US had to let go completely, or risk the rest of the world building a parallel, fragmented Internet just to escape American oversight. For a moment, the possibility of the Internet literally splitting in two was on the table. But then, in 2014, accelerated partly by the fallout from the Snowden surveillance revelations, the United States agreed to transition that oversight away from its own government and into the global multi-stakeholder community represented within ICANN itself. That transition completed in 2016. For the first time since the Internet's creation, no single government held direct, formal control over its core naming infrastructure. It was one of the quietest handovers of global power in modern history, and almost nobody outside a small policy world noticed it happening.
So, who actually has the power today? The honest answer is layered, not singular. Nobody has an off switch for the whole Internet. No person, no company, no government can reach out and turn it off worldwide. The system was deliberately built to be too distributed for that, on purpose, because it was originally designed to survive a nuclear war. But control exists in pieces. ICANN controls the naming system. A handful of organizations physically operate the root servers. National governments control what happens inside their own borders. Some countries, like China, build entirely separate filtering systems to control what their citizens can access, effectively creating their own version of the Internet within the global one.
And a small number of massive private companies, the ones that build the physical cables, the cloud infrastructure, the major platforms, hold enormous practical influence over what most people actually experience day to day, even without holding any formal governing authority. That's the part that should actually concern you. It's not one map anymore. It's dozens of smaller maps, controlled by dozens of different actors, and the only thing holding them together is an agreement that no one fully breaks the system everyone depends on.
So what would it take to actually take this down? Not a single hacker. Not one government. It would take something closer to a coordinated attack on undersea cables, the physical fiber lines carrying nearly all intercontinental traffic, combined with an attack on the root server system itself, at the same time in multiple countries. It's happened in miniature before. Countries have accidentally, and in rare cases deliberately, misdirected global Internet traffic through a technique called BGP hijacking, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours, rerouting huge portions of global traffic through the wrong country entirely before anyone noticed. Nobody has ever pulled off the full version, but the fact that the pieces required are known, documented, and technically possible is exactly why this system's resilience has never been fully tested, only ever simulated.
So who controls the Internet? Not one person, not one company, not even one government anymore, at least not officially. It's a patchwork, a California nonprofit holding the map, a scattered group of institutions running the addresses, and individual nations building their own walls inside a system designed from the start to resist anyone fully owning it. The Internet was built to survive a nuclear war. It turns out that same design also makes it very hard for any single entity to ever fully control it. Whether it survives everything else the next century throws at it is a different question entirely. This is Netfail. We break down the hidden mechanics behind the technology you use every day.